Good evening, class. Michael Conklin here, and this week we are discussing discrimination in the workplace. For this assignment, we were to go over a case study where the mother of a child who is having an asthma attack presents to a pediatric hospital seeking care and notifies the first nurse they come in contact with that they do not want anyone that is not Caucasian treating their son. So I would first like to start by addressing how this would impact the hospital and the caregivers and build from there. Um, if we adhere to the mother's request right off the bat, no questions asked, um, what we do is we tell all the members of our organization that we are okay with them being racially discriminated against. We do not value their diversity and that we don't have their backs or best interest in mind. Um, the patient gets treated, which of course is great. That's what our main intent is to take care of the patient and treat them. Um, However, we are not taking care of our team members. Um, we will lose trust amongst our team. Um, in terms of retention, we're going to have a hard time retaining qualified team members. Um, we'll lose trust within the community. You know, they're not going to want to come and receive care at our hospital if they feel that we are okay with our team members, which, you know, is essentially our community's family members or members of our community themselves, are okay with them being discriminated against. So if we're not getting the patients coming to us, there's obviously huge financial implications of adhering to these types of requests. Plenty of lost revenue and money left on the table. If you want to go beyond that and move into legal ramifications, you know, we can open ourselves up to a plethora of lawsuits. You know, these nurses can file lawsuits regarding discrimination against the hospital. In fact, there is a CBS News article that was published in 2013 that covers a few instances just like this. There was a nurse in Detroit that was barred from treating a white male's baby, and the hospital adhered to the father's request. Even put a note on the patient's chart that said no African American nurses allowed in the patient's room. This nurse filed a lawsuit, and it didn't go to court, but it was settled outside of court. There was another case in Michigan by the 7th U.S. Court of Appeals that held that the Federal Civil Rights Act prohibits nursing homes from making staffing decisions for nursing assistants based on residents' racial preferences. There was another lawsuit filed in 2015 where 3 African American employees of a hospital in Philadelphia claimed they were prevented from treating a pregnant white woman by her male partner who was a member of a white supremacist group. So you can see where, you know, clearly this is a terrible idea, not only from a moral and ethical standpoint, but from a legal and financial standpoint. There is nothing to gain by adhering to this mother's request except for being able to treat her son and make her son better. But there's other avenues that we can explore to get to that resolution, and I'm going to get into those. So moving forward, I think we covered, you know, the nursing staff and the caregivers and the family and the patient. In terms of the human resources department, their credibility would be absolutely shot. They would have zero credibility with the team members in the organization, and anything they tried to roll out moving forward or even any programs they put forward to try and redeem themselves would probably get very little buy-in. So there's a lot at stake here. So it's important that the approach taken when speaking with the mother, um, it's that it's very calculated, and that you are very stern and directive in your approach, so that you can get the mother to make a decision that best suits the needs of the caregivers while best suiting the needs of her son as well. So, with that, as the human resources director, it's important that I would get with the nursing supervisor, or nursing manager, make sure we're on the same page moving forward, and that we show a unified front in addressing this mother's demands. So, I would introduce myself to the mother. Ma'am, my name is Michael Conklin. I am the Human Resources Director here at Mercy Family Hospital. I have been brought up to speed on the situation and the request that you have made. Um, you know, it is the policy of Mercy Family Hospital that we do not subject our team members to discrimination, whether it be based on race, sex, age, or sexual orientation. Um, your request can put a lot of stress on our nursing staff, and I don't think that it's entirely necessary in treating your son. All of our team members, our nurses in particular, they all graduated from accredited nursing programs. They are all licensed by the state of Arizona, and they're all highly trained and highly proficient in their jobs and must adhere to the same training standards as all other nurses in this hospital. So regardless of their race, they are highly qualified to treat your son. So with your permission, I would like to ask Susie to come in and start your son on some albuterol to help relieve his asthma symptoms and hopefully make him feel better. With any luck, if your son's condition is stable, we can get you discharged and get you on your way. So it's my hope in that the patient sees, that the mother sees that her son needs to be treated, and that his care is being delayed, and that her racial bias it doesn't matter in this moment, that her son just needs to be cared for. There is always the possibility that the mother is still insistent on us providing her a nurse that is white. At which point the conversation needs to get a little more serious, where I would explain, ma'am, here's the reality. The closest hospital besides ours that can treat your son is 3 hours away. And every minute that we spend having this conversation, your son's bronchioles are getting tighter, and it is becoming more difficult for him to breathe. And his condition, if left untreated, will start to rapidly deteriorate. And if I was to adhere to your request, I only have 2 white nurses on this unit tonight, which means that I would have to get one of them to do handoff with another nurse, so that the patients that they are taking care of can receive the care that they need, since they already have an established relationship and that nurse already knows all of their medical history. That handoff is going to take some time. So by the time we get that nurse in here, your son may be having a severe asthma attack, and you are putting your son in danger. And because of the fact that you are letting your racial bias put your son in harm's way, and you are not allowing us to treat him with the resources that we have currently available, you leave me with no other choice but to contact Child Protective Services. So I am asking you, again, if you will allow Nurse Susie to come back in, begin administering the albuterol treatment and getting your son healthy, because really that's all any of us should care about right now, is the health of your son. That's all that I care about, and that's all you should care about. And I think that we can all unify in the fact that he is our main concern here, and that we should just be able to put aside this racial bias right now. Regardless of what your beliefs are, your fundamental concern should be the care of your son. So, with that, I think when you start to apply the pressure and really stress the fact of the risk associated with letting your son go untreated, and the fact that if you chose to leave, that your next option is 3 hours away, and that your son, if he starts to rapidly deteriorate, that he may not have those 3 hours. I think applying that pressure should get the mother to go ahead and just say, okay, treat my son, do what you need to do, and she'll just suck it up and deal with the fact that her son is not being treated with or by someone that is Caucasian. I haven't had to experience this personally, but I do have some experience with patients being apprehensive to do certain things, or being uncooperative when we need to do particular CT scans on them, and the situation is emergent and it's very time sensitive. And I found that if you speak clearly, and that you do not sugarcoat anything, and you're upfront with the risks associated of not cooperating or not doing what needs to be done to receive care immediately, that patients are typically going to comply. I've only had a handful of patients over the 13 years I've been involved on the clinical side of healthcare, even then refuse treatment or to cooperate. So, I believe that would work. Again, if it did not, and the mother still at that point refused to allow Nurse Susie to treat her son, then the reality is we have to care for her son. So her son, who has nothing to do with his mother's racial bias, he's suffering here, and we've already wasted enough time, not caring for this patient. So if we have done everything within our power to convince the mother to allow us to treat this patient, and she is still not budging, then we really have no choice but to adhere to her demands, because as a minor, even in emergent situations, the parent or legal guardian still has the right to refuse treatment. We legally cannot treat that child without her consent. So that's why I said it was important that the nursing manager and I be on the same page and be on a unified front, because we're going to have to bring this to the nursing staff and let them know that we did everything that we could think of and said everything that we could think of to convince this mother to allow her son to be treated by the nursing staff that we have available, and that she will not budge, and we need to pool resources in order to provide this mother with a Caucasian nurse so that her son can receive treatment. The reason it's important we're on a unified front is, as the human resources director, these nurses, they don't know me. There's no relationship established. There's no trust built. There will be little to no buy-in on what I have to say. For my current and specific situation, being a Caucasian male myself, I can see where there would be apprehension based on that to even, who am I to tell them that this situation is okay? And that's entire, and I can understand and appreciate that. So the nursing manager who they have an established relationship with, that they have built trust with, I think it's more meaningful coming from them, and they're more likely to be buy-in. But we still have to stick to the fact that um, we need to contact Child Protective Services, because this mother has allowed her racial bias to put her son in harm's way. Um, Once we provide care for the patient and we are able to um, stabilize them, and we can get Child Protective Services involved, and they can handle the situation from there. Um, but that has to be a last case scenario, and we need to do everything in our power up front to change the mother's mind and make sure that we don't have to go down this road, because as I already described before, the implications of adhering to this request can be um, quite great, and what we stand to lose as an organization and our ability to continue providing care for other patients and the rest of the community, that's put at risk by not doing everything we can to try and change the mind of the patient's mother. So um, again, it's my hope that the approach that I would have chosen to take by explaining the risks and being stern and trying to push the mother into making the right decision would have been successful. Um, Again, if it isn't, we still have an obligation to treat the patient regardless. That we can't deny that patient care, because then what would the backlash be of that? That we denied to treat this child and we let them suffer, or at worst die. I think the CDC reports that asthma-related deaths of patients under 18 years of age was 209 in 2016. And I think that number is that low because of the amount of people that receive treatment in a timely fashion. And the last thing we want to do is be contributing to that number simply because we absolutely refuse to budge and treat that patient. But like I said, that needs to be an absolute last resort. So I think if we were to develop a policy for this, I went in this direction. I said, it is the policy of Mercy Family Hospital that no team members shall be subjected to discrimination based on race, sex, sexual orientation, or age by patients, parents, or guardians. Any instances of discrimination that cannot be resolved by citing the policy or explaining to the family that all caregivers are equally licensed and trained, the nursing manager shall be notified and Child Protective Services shall be contacted. If the patient's medical needs are emergent or conditions are rapidly deteriorating, care shall be delivered meeting the demands of the family so long as resources are available, and Child Protective Services shall be notified. So it's my hope that that guideline can help nurses have those conversations under those circumstances, and the prospect of having Child Protective Services involved, and potentially the risk of losing your child because of those racial biases will be motivation for family members to not go down that road, and to just allow our very qualified and very skilled caregivers provide care for their family members. That we're only getting more culturally diverse in healthcare, and I think instances like this are declining, at least in my area. I don't have a lot of being a Caucasian male, I don't have a lot of experience being exposed to racial bias. So, with that, I'm interested to see my colleagues' videos on this topic and see the avenues that they chose to go down. Um, I imagine since our class, is very diverse and we have different backgrounds, whether it's racial backgrounds or socio-economical backgrounds, different political and religious backgrounds, that that our understanding of this situation and our approaches to resolve it will be different. And I'm excited to get the opportunity to watch these videos and learn from you all and see what approaches you would take to handle this situation, because it's 9 p.m. on due night, and I've been rattling my head about this situation for some time now, trying to think of the best course of action. And I think that's why it's important that hospitals have policies to address these issues, because where I took the past couple of days to think about how I would resolve this issue, when a patient's condition is this serious, you have minutes to come up with a plan. And because the implications of your actions can be very severe and have long-term effects on the organization, the choices you make need to be correct. So if the hospital has a policy that can help guide a human resources director or nurse manager in making the appropriate decision, I think it's essential for hospitals to have this policy. In fact, I was searching today at work at Orlando Regional Medical Center for a policy like this, and in my searching, I could not find one. It doesn't mean that one doesn't exist, but I could not easily locate one. I may very well just have been looking in the wrong places. So I'm interested come tomorrow when I get to work to talk to my supervisors about the existence of a policy like this at our organization and whether one exists, because this brings up a great point. And I serve the area of Orlando, which is very culturally diverse, and we have a large Hispanic population, as well as a large population of Hispanic caregivers. So I can see a situation like this presenting itself, and I'm interested to know how our organization has chose to handle these situations. So with that, I think anyone who's watching this, I feel like I've probably taken up enough of your time. And again, I can't wait to watch your responses to this week's assignment and learn from each and every one of you. And hopefully this will help mold my approach and strengthen my approach in handling situations like this. So with that, everyone, have a great night. And again, I can't wait to watch your videos. Thank you.